because they go slow down, they listen to it carefully, and then and there's a speed back up. And so, but for other people, that's not as important. So these are the kinds of things that we look at with regard to being able to do preferences that change throughout the day and, of course, by incident. I'm going to tell a quick story. When we first put the sticky keys into the sticky keys, mouse keys, etc., that's in Windows and Mac came from our research center. And so when I was out working with Apple and got them to put sticky keys in, and we got it finally into the operating system, and this is before there were any regulations, so it was really nice. And exactly 3 weeks later, I got a call from the head of software, Chris Espinosa, asking me, he says, you know that feature we put into the operating system that lets you use a computer with one hand? And I said, yeah. He says, how do you turn it on? And I said, well, it's in the instruction book. And he says, I don't know. I don't look at instruction books. I don't even know where there is one. And he said, I said, well, okay. And I said, just tap 5 times on the shift key. And he goes, and he taps on it and he works and he says, oh, great. He said, I just fell in France and shattered my elbow. And so one of my arms is taped to my chest. And if I can't use my computer, I'm dead. And so it was wonderful that we put the access, he got it in exactly 3 weeks before he needed it. So that was really a great, things like that really help you when you want to put your next access feature in.
Any other question from the audience? Jerry.
And then right behind Jerry after the next one.
Hi, just some good news if I could. Jerry Ellis here again from Dublin. We're growing towards the end of this. We've heard a lot of the problems and we've heard that a lot of the problems are being solved, but there are some very, very good news stories out there as well. And the whole environment in which this is happening is changed dramatically over the last 10 years. 10 years ago when we were trying to introduce stuff, we found there were no regulations, there were some laws, but there was very little happening at a global level. But if you look now, I'm not very familiar with Spanish legislation, but if you look in America, the ADA is 20 years old now and it is just being revamped. Section 508 is in the process of being revamped. The British DDA, the Disability Discrimination Act, has just been improved and the requirements have been increased. So that legislation at a local level, national level has been increased. But the seismic shift really is the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Because what that is doing is that is forcing the big UN organizations like the World Health Organization, WIPO, UNESCO, ITU that I'm involved with. All of these have now, they're falling over themselves to implement in accessibility into what they're doing and the standards that they're developing. And that's changed completely the whole environment in which we're working. The European Union in general has ratified the UN Convention. So that means that from that level, things are changing. So I think you will find that from now on, it is easier to implement what we need into standards. And I just wanted to mention one thing before I left here today. I'm part of a group which is part of a trans-European group which has been working with SEN, the European standards body, to develop a curriculum on teaching universal design. And the idea is that when this curriculum is developed, because it's developed with the official UN standards body, it will have high recognition and will be readily taken on by universities and by large industry itself to incorporate into their mainstream training of software developers and designers. That means if you go along and you convince a company that it's a good idea to incorporate universal design, now when they go to their developers, the developers won't say universal what? They will have heard, at least have some idea of what it's about and where to go. And that is just going to be introduced. The target date at the moment is the 16th of November. So watch out for the SEN website. You'll see more about this curriculum. Thank you.
That's fantastic. And the UN Convention is really, really helping to drive, especially the international adoption of some of these thoughts. It's also spurring a number of countries to start thinking about how they can help other countries to be able to do this. And so, Spain is really out in front on a lot of these things. And I know that you're also very interested in helping to reach out. And a good deal of the world speaks your language. And so it's a really wonderful serendipity, if you will. I'm sorry, I'm using long English words. Nice consequence or nice incidents that so much is being done in accessibility in Spain, and that's one of the world's great languages. So we can do a written and then back to the.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that just by serendipity, I have been participating in the development of the European curriculum on universal design through the European Disability Forum as well, and we have ensured that interoperability architectures are there.
That's wonderful. Yeah, in the United States, we're trying to get universal design into the curricula. The biggest problem we have is the technical curricula is so full that what we're doing is we're just throwing stuff overboard. Every year we create the curricula. And so trying to get something else into the curricula, at the same time we're throwing beloved topics out, is very hard. But I think by having something that has compact modules that don't have to be, an entire course, but we actually get it into the existing courses, and then to have things like what you're doing as additional pressure to move, I think are all things that will combine to help us move forward. And I think we're into short answers now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Really, these are two very quick answers.
Okay.
But my personal question really. At the beginning of the conference, you were talking about that we have to develop the car, which is the global MPII. So I guess what we need is to produce the different pieces, the different bricks to build the MPII. So my question is, how do you think we should work together to ensure that national, European, and international coordination is efficient?
The first thing we need to do is to make sure that we do a really good job of finding people to do that. Your coordination action 5.5.D, that the European has actually funded a coordination action that would be really good for doing that. I think the NPII org was formed. It's not an organization so much as it's a gathering of people from different countries to try to do this, and it's always been international, and it's always had Europeans on it from day one. But we need to have more key players coming together so that we actually develop the whole NPII concept as a whole. And we also need to have people on there not just from a highly developed country like ours and yours and the others that are on there now, but we need to have people from the other end of the spectrum so that we evolve this idea to actually work across all the spectrums, not it works really good in high-tech countries, and then we will deliver it to the low-tech countries, and they'll just have to figure out how to make it fit. So I just think by communication and working together. The thing I worry most is there's some aspects like awareness, etc., that we need to really be able to make the case for. So we need some research on the fact that if you do everything but don't do awareness, you just wasted all your money. Because what will happen in the end is they'll fund everything except the awareness. They always do. They figure that's advertising, and why should they fund you to advertise yourself? And it's such a brain-dead question, and yet we've seen it consistently. So we need to try and do that. You next?
Yeah, just a quick question. Into one of your last slides, you have a list of some actors and stakeholders important for MPII. Who do you think, or from which of them does MPII need more work and support? So which is the most important one in this sense for you?
I'm going to say in this order. I think mainstream industry has got to be the one that needs to step up the most. Right now, researchers and developers, I mean, we're the ones who are sort of there. IBM has been one of the leaders right off, so that's mainstream. Microsoft is now on board. But the mainstream industry, if we have to go around patching everything, we're dead. And some things we can't. Can you imagine AT for a thermostat? I mean, give me a break. So we need to get mainstream industry. The things we need to have accessible need to be cooperating. This is kind of like the question about the websites. You know, if we're trying to provide access to the websites, but we've got no cooperation from the websites, our task is just a lot harder. The next thing is the AT industry. We can build all the stuff we want to in, and we can talk about free AT, and it's just, when people say the answer to our problem is free AT, and I would say yes, and the answer to world hunger is free food. Nobody would be hungry if we made all food free. Why don't we just make all the food free? I mean, it's a wonderful idea, but where the heck is the food going to come from? And the same thing, there will always be some food that people grow and give free, and there will always be some AT that's grown and given free. But you just can't count on everybody giving up their jobs, starving to death, and going out and writing free software for no recompense. And if we're just going to have, the only AT is going to be that which those of us can write in our spare time at the end of our job and at the end of our families, that's not good enough either. So that's another really important. Consumers and consumer advocates, if they're not right smack dab in the middle of everything we do, then we're off imagining what it would be like for somebody else. And then we get researchers and developers, policymakers, and of course the international is throughout the whole process. So that's the order I kind of go. You had a short one here, and I think one back there, and that's probably going to be it.
Yeah, any other in the audience? You?
Hi, my name is Marino Linaje from the University of Extremadura, and well, more or less I agree with you with your presentation, but one thing that I can understand is because one of the slides at the beginning show Gmail, Picasa, all of them are rich internet applications, and later you talk about make all simpler as possible. Rich is opposite of that. Rich is about interactivity, multimedia.
I'm sorry, what's the word?
Rich internet applications.
Oh, rich internet.
Rich.
Yeah, sorry. I got a B on there, bridge, and I bridge internet. Okay, sorry. No, it's just my ears. I'm not tuned to Spanish pronunciation. Go ahead.
Okay, so the question is, what do you think? Because users and them are demanding this kind of applications, like Gmail that use intensive